The climate protest group Extinction Rebellion brought parts of London to a standstill for 11 days back in 2019, and they're planning to do it again. Today, the group's leaders confirmed their intention to stage another series of protests demanding faster action to protect the environment. This time, they say, they will do so indefinitely until the movement's demands are met. It follows that major UN scientific report's warning yesterday that human activity is changing the climate in unprecedented and sometimes irreversible ways. We'll discuss Extinction Rebellion's goals and the tactics in just a moment. First, a reminder of the group. Yesterday's report confirming that we're to blame for warming up the world, and the warm words the report received was significant for Extinction Rebellion, or XR as they're known. But they also want action now, and they plan to take it. The 23rd of August is the date in their diary when they aim to create more scenes like these, occupying sites around London with 2 weeks of civil disobedience. Their website offers essential training for all rebels, introducing would-be demonstrators to their tactics of non-violent action, quote, whether you want to be arrested or not. They're calling the next phase of disobedience the Impossible Rebellion, looking to make what appears to be politically impossible inevitable. Their top demand? An immediate end to any new investment in fossil fuels. But are people ready for the impossible now? Although XR will primarily target the city, other areas of London are likely to experience disruption. A test of patience with a public which polls suggest are otherwise increasingly concerned about the climate. As recent devastating scenes have shown, the effects of climate change are very present. And in the words of XR, we spend more time measuring it than trying to stop it. So they'll be stopping parts of London, which will, of course, come at a cost. Expect more cops on the streets of the capital before COP26 in Glasgow. So when the warnings of the effects of climate change are so dramatic, what is the right way to make sure governments and us individuals are alert to the threat? Let's talk to co-founder of Extinction Rebellion, Clare Farrell, and also to Sam Hall, the director of the Conservative Environment Network. That's a membership organisation for Conservatives who support conservation and decarbonisation. Welcome, both of you. Clare Farrell, what's the plan then?
Hi. Well, so the plan is that people are going to go and meet, first of all, at Trafalgar Square on the 23rd at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I hope lots of people will join us. You'll be really welcome as well. So will you, Sam. And people will come together in mass protest. I think there's going to be multiple occupations. I don't know every single bit of the detail about what's planned because we have a very distributed kind of network of people. The first week will be mostly focused on talks, crisis talks, and inviting people to come to a table and discuss what we think should be taking place, which we don't think that the public are enabled to participate enough in politics, which is why we advocate for citizens' involvement in our democracy. And the second week will focus more on the City of London. We've got a new intermediate demand, which is about stopping immediately all new investment in fossil fuels, which obviously, you know, if the IEA starts saying that that's what needs to happen, it's obviously pretty simple, and it's the very least that we could do is just to stop making things worse.
How much disruption are you expecting to evolve?
Well, I think people are serious about the fact that disruptive protest does work. You know, that's part of our history in this country and other countries. So we've taken a lot of historical research in deciding to do disruptive protest. Okay. I don't know how much disruption is expected, you know, with specificity, but there will be multiple occupations, and they'll roll for different lengths of time. Yeah.
Sam Hall, what do you think of that?
Well, I think Extinction Rebellion's tactics in the past and potentially this next action as well are going to be counterproductive. They disrupt people's way of life and through their tactics and the message that they're putting across as well, focusing on this idea that taking action on climate change is some sort of sacrifice and massive risk rather than instead seeing it as an opportunity. I think if you look at the government's record, we do have the fastest decarbonisation rate in the G20. We've nearly ended coal power. Huge amount to do, and the UN report yesterday from the IPCC made that very clear. And I'd like to see, you know, stronger action, particularly on how we decarbonise our homes. But that is to create market signals to bring consumers with us, and crucially to create green jobs as well, and to make sure that there's an economic dividend in it from people.
What do you say to that, Claire?
I just think we're way past that point. We've just had a warning from the UN and the top scientists in the world, which, by the way, doesn't include a reference to any of the recent extreme weather events that have killed people on almost every continent, because they haven't been able to include those in this report. It's out of control. It's much worse than people thought. It's coming faster than we think. We need emergency, proper, grown-up action. This isn't about 2050. We've always said 2025, because rich countries like ours have got a duty to move first and to move fast. And quite frankly, what the government says it's doing about climate, it is not. It's missing almost every single marker of indicator of progress by the climate change
there's a whole list of things that they have done. Sam Hall has mentioned some. I've got many more which I could put to you now. But if you're disrupting people's lives, isn't that, as Sam says, counterproductive? You need the public on your side.
Well, look, we don't need to be particularly popular. What we need to be is effective. We're not trying to win elections. We're not trying to take any power. In fact, XR doesn't want power.
Okay.
It wants to give power to normal people.
Sam Hall, it does. I mean, you've heard what Claire says. I don't need to repeat it for you. They don't care. It's not a popularity contest. They don't mind if they disrupt people's lives, if it attracts attention.
But I think the problem is that the message that they're putting out there, that, as I say, climate action is something that's going to involve this massive disruption. I mean, net zero by 2025 would be extraordinarily expensive. We'd see people having to scrap their cars before the end of their lives. We'd see gas boilers have to be replaced with heat pumps. Whereas instead, if we have a transition over 3 decades, we can set clear signals of the way that the market's going. We give businesses time to invest, to innovate, bring down the cost of those new technologies, and we support consumers to take them up. That is ultimately how you bring people with you. And I think that the policy prescription and the approach Extinction Rebellion are using ultimately put the people off that we need to convince, which is Middle England. We know that the tactics of Extinction Rebellion fundamentally appeal to a very small minority of people, and actually they put a lot of people off. They don't like to see ambulances and other emergency service vehicles being stopped from getting where they need to. They don't like people commuting into work and having all these other pressures of day-to-day life, having to contend with the disruption that the protests cause. And I just think, there's incredibly positive story that we need to tell about net zero, of the economic opportunity, and what Extinction Rebellion is putting across instead is a distraction and that message.
Okay. Apologies for the quality of the Zoom, but we've absolutely got the gist of what you're saying, Sam Hall. Let me put it to both of you in the last few seconds that we have. In the end, people like you are going to have to work together, aren't you?
Well, yeah, and that's why we're an open movement. That's why we've worked with people from the Conservative end of the spectrum and from the left end of the spectrum. It's really important that people come together. That's what Citizens' Assembly is about. But I just want you to understand that the moral disgust at how we have come to this situation and the deep, deep grief of the catastrophe that we've already committed to, the words irreversible, the words inevitable, things like this that are coming through from the UN, we can't have these kinds of conversations where people are just discussing little policy moves and things by 2050. It's now. We're in breakdown now. It's catastrophic. People are dying.
Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you for your time. Clare Farrell and Sam Hall.